Good morning and welcome to the last town hall for the semester and the academic year. Those of you who don't know me, I'm Maria Picasso, and as chair of the CLA Council, I'll be moderating the town hall. I would like, obviously, today to introduce to you our speaker, who is the acting provost, who will begin the town hall with a few comments, and then we will open it up to questions, live questions, anonymous questions, and online questions.
Great. Thank you. Well, good morning, everyone, and thank you for having me here today. I imagine everyone's also excited that it's the last town hall, which means they're almost there to the last of the semester. I want to thank you for your patience while I had to reschedule this. This is my first day back, and so I'm really excited that I'm able to be here today to not only see you all in person and address you, but also to the folks that are listening in on Zoom as well. So I want to say, first of all, that I've been really fortunate. I've been in this role as acting provost since February 1. And in that time, and even before when I was vice provost, I've been really fortunate to attend many of your college's events. And they always are thought-provoking. They always humble me with my own research and my own interests and my own background. And they're always full, and which shows just how integral this college is to the entire fabric of the university. And so I'm really excited to really get your questions today. I hope to be quite informal, if that's okay. I did want to say just a couple of things, as well as thanking you for allowing me to be here today. I am looking really forward, as I'm sure many of you are, not only to the end of the semester, but also to commencement. And I wanted to take just a moment to explain why we have switched back to 6 separate ceremonies. One of the things that, if you came, did anybody here in the room come to last May's events? Right. So you will know that we had a big problem with the weather. In particular, the last day, the last ceremony on the football field, we were literally rushing till there was a thunderstorm that was coming in, and we were moving faster than ever. I mean, we were giving people their handshake and pushing them off the stage and everything. And we cleared the football field with only about 15, 20 minutes spare before a thunderstorm would come in and lightning. So one of the things that we tried to do by moving it back to CQ Arena is obviously we take the weather off the table and out of the equation, which is a significant safety issue. And it's also an issue that this was brought to us by our commencement staff, those folks who work for weeks and even months to put this event on, to put up the scaffolding, to have everything set up for the graduates and their family. It is just a significant relief to them to move it indoors. That, however, means in order to make sure that every graduate is able to bring a sufficient number of guests, that we have to go to a separate ceremony for each of the colleges. As a lot of people prefer that, to be honest. It's your event then, you get to put your stamp on it to a certain degree. If you, many of the colleges have doctoral graduates, so we've been able to move the doctoral hoodies back into the individual college events, whereas before, graduating students had a separate, doctoral students had a separate hooding ceremony, and they weren't able always to come into their own college, the full graduation. And so this way we've incorporated all of that into one. I promise you, also for those of you faculty who will be attending, and I hope many of you will, we have doubled the capacity for faculty as a result. And I promise you, though, that we are working very, very diligently, that we are keeping it still as a relatively short ceremony, an efficient ceremony. If any of you know our new vice provost for strategic communication, Bethany Pace, She is the best organizer of commencement ever. I'm thrilled to have brought her back into our office. We are timing it. I promise you will not be there for hours and hours. And we so want you to be there. Where again, previously, apparently we had to cut back on faculty, and that was the first thing that Bethany and I changed when she came back on board. So we want you to be there. We want you to celebrate your students' success, because they wouldn't be at commencement and there with their families if it weren't for all of you and for all of the staff that help get students to that obvious, the goal of completing their degree. We couldn't do it without you either. So I hope that you all will be there. We're working really, really hard to make sure that it is an enjoyable and a good experience for everyone. And so I encourage you, if you can, to participate in that as well. If you can't, we'll continue to stream it live, and so you can see it in all its glory as well. I think then, let me see, I wanted to check my notes. Let me talk just briefly about a couple of initiatives that are coming out of our office as well. These are more things that I was beginning to work on as the new vice provost until things got a little scrambled, and but we are committed to working on for the summer on a couple of initiatives. And I think this will be, you know, I'm committed to getting this done this summer so that before new searches come up in the fall, we will have an improved faculty search system and an improved faculty search process. One of the things that's happening right now is that lecturer and clinical searches are in a different form, in a different format than tenure and tenure track searches. We are moving all of those to Taleo now. We will have them all in one system. You won't have to know which kinds of forms that you will have to provide and go back and forth between a lecturer and a tenure track. It was never meant to distinguish between the two. It was simply that HR wanted to pilot one group through Taleo this first year. We chose tenure track, finding no real design. Now that we've been through a year, we've worked out a significant number of the bugs. Millie McMillan has been terrific in HR working with us on some of those. And we anticipate that in the fall then, all faculty and staff searches should be able to go through the Taleo system. Maybe not staff, because they'll continue to go through the HR, but approvals and things like that should be able to go through. And so I'm hoping that that's something that we will show improvement on for you for the fall as well. I also just wanted to again mention our new assistant provost, Bethany Pace. One of the reasons that I was excited to bring Bethany back into our office is, number one, she has a vast wealth of knowledge about the university. She's been in several different positions throughout the university. And one of the problems, if you will, or challenges that we've heard from all of you about the office of the provost is our communication. And so we have appointed Bethany as the assistant provost at strategic communication. She has already started to change some of our processes. We're going to continue. She is the lead person for commencement. So once we're past commencement, we have a number of initiatives in place, but you'll begin to see a change in the way that we communicate out to the greater university. We always try to communicate quickly, efficiently, and transparently, but we're going to have new ways of doing that. We will have ways that you won't have to hear things trickle down, is our hope, right? So one of the things so we're working on that. Bethany and I have a number of new projects that we're working on over the summer. And I hope to soon have announcements about those kinds of things as well. But I wanted to make sure that you all know that we've heard the concerns about communication out of our office. We're really working really hard on that, including bringing someone in who is a trained and expert communication strategist. And so I hope that that will you'll begin to see improvements and a real output from our office in ways that are meaningful and important to you as well. So I think if it's okay, I'm going to stop for a minute and take whatever questions and whatever form you want.
We'll open it up to the floor if there are people here that have questions for the provost. I have a question here that.
Diane asks as well.
Oh, sorry.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Diane, go ahead.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I was curious, I appreciate the interest in, output communication.
Sure.
I was also curious about the potential for maybe giving some feedback about some of the changes. Because for instance, using the CLA system that you brought up, and having used it, I think maybe we have some feedback from our perspective
Absolutely.
that might help kind of with some, working out the kinks or whatever is going on with it, that might be helpful.
Absolutely.
Okay, and maybe if we had that opportunity, I would appreciate giving some feedback.
You're making a great point, Diane, is that I'm excited that we're moving everything to Lego, but you all may not be because you may have had some problems with it. So thank you for saying that. No, we need to bring you into that feedback loop. I think it's going to be better because there will only be one system where things come through. And one of the things that if any of you have done, if you've been a search committee chair, is that Taleo at least prompts us to see that something is in our queue, even though we check it, I check mine 3 times a week, and sometimes that's not enough, right? And we want to be able to move things through. The FDS system can just get lost in somebody's email. So I thank you for that suggestion, and I'll make sure that we get something out to all of you, especially as we are rewriting the search handbook to make sure that we know your questions ahead of time so that we can hopefully address them this summer prior to you having to go back in and use the system. Thank you for that.
So an anonymous question that was sent to us was whether or not there was any word on COLA or merit raises in the near future.
There is no official word. USM has released some guidance, but it's not been released to my office yet. I think that we're going to hear something soon, and I think it's going to be positive. But the worst thing that I could do would be to say it's going to be this, and then it turns out to be that, and give you wrong information. But my sense is from the USM communication that there will be something forthcoming, probably starting July 1, like we always do. And I think that information should be confirmed relatively soon. I wish I had it for you today. That would have been a nice little thing to do. Sorry about that.
We also get questions, and certainly we've had questions similar to this
Sure.
in the past, regarding R2,
Sure.
and it's the individual indicated that while the administration is clearly motivated to reach R2 status, this person would like to know specifically how reaching R2 status would benefit our faculty and our students.
Yeah. I want to say that everywhere I go, I get asked about R2, and I'm not bothered by that. I want us to keep talking about it, and I want us to keep answering your questions until there's no questions anymore. Just to give a little perspective on this time last year, I was a full-time faculty member. And I too am a senior faculty member, and in a quasi-administrative role in my department, and wondering what R2 was going to mean for me as someone who, was doing more administration and mentoring within our college rather than my research, which had slipped a little because of my administrative roles. So I totally get it. I totally understand perhaps not knowing where your place is going to be in R2. what I want to say, and I say this rather humbly, having come through the R2 system and talking to people and learning more and more about it, especially since this role in on February 1st, is that the heart of the institution is still teaching, and it always will be teaching. We are going for R2 status, not R1 status. So there's a significant difference in those two models for universities. Another kind of thing to think about is we're already operating at R2 except for one metrics. So we already have the research output from our faculty. We far exceed the expectation for research output from an R2 institution. We already far exceed the number of millions of dollars that are spent on research activities. We have one more kind of metrics to hit is graduates of PhD programs. And so we are this last year and so starting in the fall, we have a couple of new PhD programs coming on board, but mostly what we've been doing this year is converting our existing professional doctorates to PhDs so that we can begin to hit that metrics. We have to have students graduate. So we're looking at 2027 for R2 status at the earliest. In the meantime, we have already committed, I think in the neighborhood of about a dozen or so $1 million for research funding, for new faculty lines, for existing faculty lines in departments that will now offer PhDs that previously did not. We will also have increased funding for DAs, and we have increased funding for operating because PhD programs cost a lot. And so you can't ask a department to suddenly become a PhD granting department and not have the infrastructure to support that. So we've had to, just this year again, just from the legislative body or legislative session that ended about a couple of weeks ago, we received an additional $6 million for R2 funding for next year. And many of you, that's why I brought up the searches, because some of your departments may have gotten notification on some new faculty searches that have now become available. So we're rolling it out in ways that we believe that support the needs that you have, understanding that that goes beyond just faculty lines. It includes additional staff lines if it's a program that needs updating and equipment and upkeep of equipment and things like that. But what I want to say also is we're also committed not just to those PhD students and the PhD programs, but to undergraduate research in general. And that's a hallmark of an R2 institution as well. If you've been around, for the last couple of weeks in particular, just about every night of the week, there has been some sort of undergraduate research presentation. You've also seen that the Office of Competitive Fellowships and Awards recently had its end of the year celebration, that we have had more undergraduate research fellows and competitive awardees than ever before in Towson's history. That's what is the hallmark of an R2. And that is not for new faculty only or new programs only. That's the work that you're already doing. So one of the things that we're really trying to commit to and to get the word out is that there will be folks that are predominantly teachers and will still find ways to classify what you're doing as research and scholarly activities that will somewhat fit, if you will, under the R2 model, but you're already doing it. You're already mentoring undergraduate scholars. You're already mentoring students who are in interdisciplinary programs that are doing original research. You already have a Cambridge scholar, which is the first one ever, right? And so you already are doing things that fit the model of an R2 institution, and you'll continue to have that support from us. So I know that I've heard from some places that, or some conversations that we're gonna fire all the senior faculty, and that's just not gonna happen. I'm not really sure why that comes up, and from the smile on the faces of everyone, I can tell that you've heard that too. We're not doing that. It's our senior faculty, our our associate level faculty and our junior faculty that have made us brought us to the point where Carnegie recognized the works that we were already doing and said, you're already operating in an R2 status. And you're the ones that got us here. You're the ones that will continue our progression towards R2. And you're the ones that will lead us into the future as an R2 established research institution. You're already the ones who have helped us get there and will continue to play an absolutely critical role in it. Yes.
Actually, the question coming up top of that question
Sure.
you just answered about the undergraduate research. I know a lot of us mentor undergraduate students, myself included.
Sure.
And it takes to mentor students and undergraduate students well, it takes a lot of time and effort and dedication. And at present, we really don't get a lot as faculty of compensation for doing so.
Yeah.
At least I don't. I mean, you can have students take a course and you might get a couple $100, but to mentor a thesis taking a whole year and collecting data is a huge undertaking.
Yeah.
So I guess I'm wondering if there's any consideration of having that be part of course load when we're mentoring students at a dedicated level. If there's any other thoughts of how to compensate for
Yeah.
faculty doing that.
Yeah, we have to figure that out, right? And we have not yet convened a full group on it, but we have plans to start doing that. I think that's critical that we recognize the work that you're putting in. Like I just said, it's not, I'm not just saying that you're the ones that got us here to R2, that you are. And so how can we make sure that we haven't taken that into consideration, whether that's in workload or, like you said, some kind of additional comp? We need to clarify that and give guidance. And one of the things that we are working on right now that will come out in the summer is new workload guidelines. They're not going to look like R2. I'm trying to tell everybody they're not going to be R2 guidelines because we're not allowed to act and have governing documents as an R2 institution when we have yet to even be designated as that. But we are going to reflect accurately what kind of institution we are at the moment, and we will begin to work toward that. And that is something that is critical, and I understand that. Thank you.
And I have a somewhat related question. We're now in sort of a transition years, I guess, R2. You said that we're functioning pretty much doing a lot like R2 in the expectation, but faculty is choosing right now, do we do 4-3, do we do 3-3? And some people decided to do 3-3, but it's not clear, you know, what are there any different expectations in terms of research? And we knew as 4-3, it was an unofficial expectation for like, you know, 3 articles in between promotions, I know. But right now, I know that many people decided to go 3-3 or stay 4-3, but nobody, I don't know if there are additional education if you are going from 4-3 to 3-3, or is it just the same and it's just a decision made on your own?
Thank you for that. This is going to be a very unsatisfying answer, so I'm going to just say that up front. So the thing that always makes me nervous, I understand we need to give you some better guidelines, and that's what's coming out. However, I just said the guidelines aren't going to be as specific as faculty and even maybe some departments want them to be, because what we want faculty to do is to continue to work on those workload agreements with their chairs and their deans very carefully, taking into consideration the needs of the students, making sure that classes that need to be taught are staffed and available to students so that no students are, for instance, have time to graduation interrupted because of that. So we're working really closely to make sure that that your chairs and your deans have the knowledge and the input from our office to work with individual departments and individual faculty on that. I don't think what you don't want is for the provost's office to say, this is what workload is going to be, and this is what this will look like in every situation, because what works for you all in this college would not work necessarily for the College of Fine Arts or the Fisher College or things like that. So the guidelines that we're going to be providing are going to be more generalized. What it looks like is really up to you and your chair and your dean's office and your unit coordinators, if you have those kinds of things, kinds of individuals, to make sure that you are being fair and equitable to all faculty, you know, because there's always folks that ask for things and maybe this year they, you know, can't be accommodated, but the next year they can be. So it's an unsatisfying answer, and I'm sorry to do that. But what I want to say is, I don't think you want me or my department giving very, very specific guidelines that this is what a 3-3 looks like, or this is what a 3-2 looks like. But we will help to make sure that every kind of agreement that a chair is working out through their dean's office with a faculty member will comply primarily, first and foremost, with USM, which is the guidelines that we have to follow.
Maybe as a faculty member that I sit in PTRN, you know, committee, and I see binder, and the binder of 3-3 or 3-4, nothing has changed.
Yeah.
So do you think it's
I think-
something the department has to decide, or the college, or because like I know in my department, I know like there was a whole department that makes sense to me. But in my department, people you know, it's individual decision. And yet when we go to PTRN committee, there is no guidelines of like, we need to see another article here, we need to see brand, you know, it's kind of, maybe, I don't know, maybe that's the way it should be in the next few years.
Well,
in terms of equity and.
I think it may be, perhaps, I don't know, perhaps it's been that way. In other words, my 3-3 might look different than your 3-3, or something else, you know, or within a different department. And I would argue that maybe there should be that ability to have flexibility within departments, as long as, again, it is fair, it is equitable, that it is supportive of faculty, and they're not only in your scholarly desires and your goals, but also in your teaching output and things like that, and creation of new curriculum and things like that. So to some degree, that's already existed. There's been some leeway within colleges to do that. We can certainly put together some best practices if that would be helpful. I also want to make sure, though, that it is college specific, because again, there are some colleges on this campus that use like a point system and are very, very rigid because of their accrediting bodies. I don't think anybody wants that imposed on them, and that wouldn't make much sense either. But I understand what you're saying, and I think truly one of the things, and I wish I had more for you today, but I can pledge to you that we're working on it over the summer. And I want to reach out, you know, and I think as Diane brings up about even CLA, it's important to get your feedback on things as we move forward, so that we're just not deciding things and pressing them down as well.
So the timing, I want to add the timing of the guidelines is really great for this college, because next academic year, I mean, we've said this every academic year since I arrived. I think it's going to actually happen. Next academic year, this college revises, or at least looks at its PTRN guidelines.
Yes.
So that's, I think, good timing.
I want to say that, thank you for prompting that. Memory of mine too is that some departments and colleges have already rewritten theirs and have rewritten their guidelines, their workload guidelines, or at least are working on them right now ahead of us coming out with some kind of update. And again, our update is going to be very general. It's going to actually remove college-specific policies that are in the overall Towson workload document because they don't belong there, to be honest. They belong in your individual college documents. So perhaps you are doing quite a bit of work. I know a couple of colleges have already rewritten their workload guidelines to what works for them. They have not gone through the UPTRM approval process yet, but they will soon, and we welcome that as well to continue to work on those ahead of ours here.
I wanted to, maybe we're belaboring this too much and there are other things to talk about, but in your comments about how the fact that many of us are already as a college producing R2 scholarship, right, at that level. One of the things that's really tricky as far as a chair is concerned, and this is for faculty too, other faculty, and having these conversations with faculty about their work. It's really interesting, right? If one's going to move from a 7 to a 6 load, our dean has said that there should be more scholarly productivity. But if somebody's already actually producing because they're working really, really hard, right? In fact, as you say, this is true for Towson faculty as a whole. Why are we asking for even more scholarship when people are already doing probably more than they should, particularly for a college like ours, where before faculty were largely at a 7, and in other colleges they weren't, right? So that's one part of the question. And then the second part of the question is, who is the provost's office working with to write this new workload policy? Because the chairs, for example, haven't heard of it.
UPTRM is the body that we have been working with. And they are the reps, they are for their shared governance. That is one of the committees that we work with.
I'm on UPTRM, I haven't heard of it.
I've been to the meetings a couple of times and actually brought that information to a UPTRM meeting. So perhaps, and so we will continue to do that. First and foremost, I talked about it at one of the COC chairs at meetings, but I said it's not ready yet, but it will be. And we will be sharing it as well out as soon as we have the final kind of version. It's actually in the Office of General Counsel too. It has to be approved by them because Towson has to map on the USM, and then the colleges will map onto the Towson one. So it's going, sadly, it's still through the approval process through Office of General Counsel and things like that. But it should be out to UPTRM again, because I shared it, but we'll talk a little bit more about that soon, for sure.
So we have a couple online questions for you. One of the questions was actually they were kind of jumping off of what Tina had said regarding mentoring. The individual said, I supervise students during their internships, which takes an awful lot of time mentoring them and helping them develop a research project. Yet the compensation for that is $75 for the entire semester. It seems like exploitation of faculty. What can we do to address that?
I'm not sure the model. I don't have a good answer to that for the person that asked it. We will look at that model. I'm not sure, and somebody else can remind me if it is if it's tapped out. Is it like 8 credits or something that you're allowed to do as an internship, or is that a class?
Yeah,
it's a class now. Okay, so is it possible that if someone is an internship director, could they have 10 students in it and it would be part of their work? Marion said yes.
Varies what the internship, how involved they are.
Okay,
Based on the 2006 workload faculty. So it's I think
12,
is
but that's not
12
bad.
is better.
It's 12 total or 12 credits.
12
Students up to whatever your credit load could be, which is 3 to 6 in a semester, or
There's
Does it
36
vary?
units of internship for it to count as a class.
Got it. perfect, thank you. So in the case of someone who's getting $75 per student, would it be is there a large enough mass of internship students that that person should actually be like an internship director, and it would be one of their courses? I think that's different in different departments, right? And so so what we could do is work on, getting some more information out about the modeling. I can look at, I don't have knowledge about where the $75 came from, to be perfectly honest. I'll look that up and I'll find out more about it. What I don't want to again do is impose one model on everybody, but we want to be able to give choices that make sense for each department. And I understand that some departments have internship directors who take the class, others do not, because it's better for students to work with different faculty. So we don't want to, so let me look into that, and I will get back to you with some information about it.
Another online question, the individual asked if there was a website that lists the back to fall events for faculty. It's hard for admin staff to plan things like department meetings without knowledge.
There is a website that Bethany Pace has started up, or a calendar that has been shared with the dean's offices. The welcome back events are being planned right now. The dates are let me pull up my calendar real quick. I can give you the welcome back date. I believe it's the 23rd, August 23rd.
And shares, maybe you remember better than me, but I think I shared. So that's for you to share out, right?
But will there be a website? I mean, is it just on the, I guess that's one of the questions they're asking is it on the provost website?
It is not
something
yet, but
Okay.
it will be, but it'll just be a list. The calendar is going to be, a SharePoint calendar that will have permissions given to your chairs and your dean's officers, because it's too easy for somebody to accidentally delete something. And so we'll keep that, but the dates themselves will be posted on the provost's office homepage very soon. But since you asked, I want to get this. Yes, the provost's office welcome back event will be Wednesday, August 23rd. We will start with a welcome back like we did this past year. Interim President Provost is very keen on having a morning event where she welcomes everybody back, maybe gives some thoughts about where we are for the start of the academic year. That will be, and again, we will post this, but it'll be at 9 o'clock. Then we have an end of the, after the end of the day event as well, which starts around 4 o'clock. It's just a reception. There's not a formal program. That will be for all academic affairs for full-time faculty and for your staff as well to kind of come in the end of the day. So the hope is that the Office of the Provost and Interim President Perot starts off your day with a recap of what we've been, where we're headed, kind of some thoughts for you to think about. We have asked the dean's offices to have a dean's event that same day. And we're hoping that the chairs will also have some sort of welcome back meeting that same day as well. So that it's all kind of compact on one day. You get to hear from all levels of your leadership. And also works, we think, well, as a way just to get people back to see each other and to kind of interact. If you've been around for a couple of years, you know that several years ago we actually exceeded the capacity for the ballrooms in the union and had to kind of move into a whole other space. So we're careful about the space. What we also have that we will be posting very soon is we do have a welcome back event for our adjunct faculty that week. And we also have, other events for the brand new faculty. The new faculty orientation will be that week as well. So I think now is the exact time for us. I think just last week they got those dates, and they needed to get places reserved. As you know, reserving large spaces is difficult at the first week, the week before classes start. But we think we have that. And I promise I'll let you know as soon as we have that posted. It should again. I hate to say it'll be this week and then not have it happen, but it will be very, very soon.
You mentioned interim president.
Yeah.
Related to that, any news on search, where we are, what's?
So I'm not privy to it, to be honest. I'm not on the search committee. There might be somebody in the room who is. But so I have no information.
And there's no information regarding the potential start date, and there's some talk of the.
There is, certainly we would like someone in place at the start of the year.
But it's right, but it's not.
But that's all I know. And so if you, there's a presidential search website, it gets updated. But I really honestly do not know exactly where they are in the search process.
Another question. What are the plans for addressing incredible disparities in advising load? There are large departments that carry great burden, and yet there's no flexibility in how to support the increased labor of some faculty.
That's something that I'm really committed to. I want, and we'll be looking at, I know I keep saying it, over the summer, we're going to be looking at things. We're looking at different models again to fit different colleges and different departments. In my own college, the College of Fine Arts and Communication, we have completely different models in just about every department. And that's by design, because it's what works for them, what some have super advisors that of course reassignment for doing a large number of advisors. Some have a staff member who runs all of the advising, but does not do all the advising, but runs the efforts, runs the events at GU for you, or the admitted student day, and the transfer registration over the summer and things like that. Faculty are expected to do advising, there's no doubt. It's in our contracts and it is a part of our expected workload. However, how an individual department is parsing that out right now might be very, very different across not only individual departments in a college, but across different colleges. And so there is an advising task force that is looking into some of the ways that it's done to kind of bring some information back to us. We need to look at how different departments are doing it across the board. I honestly don't know. I hear about it anecdotally, but I don't have a good reporting out on how that's been done. And so it's something that we're going to look into. I would encourage you to talk not only with, if you're a department chair or you're a department advisor, I would definitely ask you to revisit this if you haven't already with your dean, and look at how that might be changed to work better for your department or something like that as well. And then we'll get that information.
There are more questions. I'd like to take them.
Sure.
This was an anonymous question that was sent in. What's the benefit of writing grants? Course releases are prohibitively expensive. The amount of work it takes is crushing, and really, who benefits?
Well, I would hope that the faculty member benefits. I would hope that you're not doing something that you don't think you want to be doing. If you are doing something that you don't want to be doing, then I would talk to your department chair about doing something different. There, again, maybe the flexibility within workload agreements could have you working in a different area. We do have funds, and one of the new things that we've done is the Provost Scholars Fund, which is coming out of Sid Kaza's office, which is some research funding for the summer to help help existing faculty get paid for doing this kind of work over the summer. And so if you have, it's been running in TU today for a couple of weeks, but I will make sure again that it gets reposted out to you as well. If you could post, if you could send that out as well, so that you can at least feel like your labor is being compensated. It's also a way to recognize the work that folks are doing over the summer. I guess what I would say, and this is, not meant to be flippant in any way, but when I go out and prior to getting COVID last week, I had spent, like I said, a lot of time going to undergraduate research presentations and award ceremonies and things like that. And I saw faculty and met with faculty and had faculty come up to say to me that nothing made them more happy than working on undergraduate research and having, their work recognized and their students' work recognized, and it was very fulfilling work for them. And I believe that. And so I would suggest and hope that if someone is doing that kind of work, that they're doing it not just to benefit themselves, but also for the benefit of their students and the graduates of your programs. And I know that how much it means to the students as well. And so we'll make sure that we get that information out about some of the summer funding.
Following up on sort of the concrete part of that question, though, when we put in for a course release at Towson, it is a percentage of our salary rather than the amount that's needed to cover for an adjunct, for example, a class.
Right.
So it might be 10, 15,000 for a course release. And the adjunct probably costs what, 4,000 or something like that. And that is not the model at all universities. And it makes me less attractive as a collaborator for people at other universities. And it takes away from money I could pay an RA here to potentially support my work, which is to support a grad student, which is consistent with our goals. So I guess to that question, is there?
That is, we just had a meeting about that last week, about those disparities and about how that's done across different colleges. We're looking into it. I don't have anything today to tell you about it, except that we take that seriously. And we have heard from many faculty, and especially as we work with OSPR. And the move to the 9-month contracts was so that faculty could get more research funding to cover the full 3 months and be eligible for that. And it also was to help chairpersons who have active research agendas to be able to be covered as well over those summer months. That is certainly another piece of it that we are looking into. And so I appreciate that. We are working.
Someone on the presidential search committee responded to our comment, and
Sure.
they indicated that the presidential search committee meets next on May 22nd, and they're working on the list of candidates.
Excellent. There you go. Thank you. Thanks to whomever answered.
It was Dr. Wheeler.
Great. Thank you, Benjamin.
There are a couple questions, but I think they're probably more relevant for the dean. So
I'm happy to
but
yield the floor to
I'm
the dean.
gonna ask them, and while I'm saying, I'll ask the questions, and then there's a lack of transparency regarding workload. Some departments are told that a course release is possible for advising 50 students. Others say releases are not permitted. How will this be addressed?
I prefer you to start. I think the 50 is the.
So I've heard that too about the number. And that has been practiced. My understanding is that has been practiced in colleges, and it's different. And so I think that for the time being, that is the purview of the dean's office and the departments to decide that. We have not had conversations about discontinuing that practice as far as covering people who have a really, really large number. At the same time, we want to kind of hope that we can come up with a better model that's more equitable, so that you don't have people, that are doing a large number of advisees and others in the department doing no advising. That's not, I don't think that's an ideal model either. So I don't know the individual.
So it's worth noting because many people in the group here today have heard Melanie respond to a similar question, and she was firm last year at 30 as the norm. Doesn't mean there wouldn't be any exceptions. But I do think there's, going back to an earlier question about advising, and that is, there are departments that don't have that many students. So in maybe the smallest department, they might have 2 advisees per full-time faculty member versus 30, which is probably much more common. So we'll have to address that in the college. I'll start with the chairs. I know we've talked with them, but we haven't actually worked on it. I mean, there are different models for balancing that out. And we haven't had that in the college, so it's something that.
Yeah, I think that, like I said, the preference is because advising is actually listed in our contracts and it is a USM expectation. I think that all faculty should be doing some advising. What's not ideal is to have 2 people in a department advising 60 or 100 people and then other people not advising them. So we'll have to work on that, and I appreciate Chris's pledge to work and look at that a little bit more.
There's again, again, either provost or dean, questions about fairness have come up. In general, the questions have addressed or attempted to ask the question about whether or not some faculty who are incredibly productive, others perhaps not as productive, and which one gets the teaching load adjustment. Some do, some don't, and I guess the issue is really, how is that determined and how is that fair that some were exceptionally productive, don't get that course release?
If you don't mind, I start. So I just want to, commend the chairs for the work they did this year on workload. It's not that you didn't do it in the past, but as the culture and the model has shifted, you may have done your work differently. So we've gone through, meaning the chairs have gone through the question of that addresses fairness with every single faculty member, and then I've gone through it. And if you may or may not be aware, if your workload was approved, you didn't hear anything, probably except that it was approved. But I didn't approve all of them, in blanket form. I looked at those very carefully, talked, communicated with the chairs, went back and forth, asked for more information. It is not only a very detailed process, but we are striving for fairness. So I think the fairness question is something we do need to address as a group, not just with the chair, but with faculty, maybe at one of our town halls in the fall. There are perceptions of fairness, and there's inequity, right? And I'm quite comfortable with the fact that this was an equitable process. Was it without errors? No, we need to keep improving it. We'll work on that, like everything else we need to work on. But the chairs worked commendably, I think, carefully with their faculty communities.
Not that, when I usually go in chair, look at, I look at equity fairness. Honestly, the kind of equity fairness is as complex as defining family. And to me, how do we look across college? There's certain matrices we can look at that I do point out to peers, because that's a conversation. So not only this doing it, not only the peers doing this, but we're doing it across the board. But it is very complex. It's very complex to define and describe, but we're working on it, and we always.
So I would like to give the last 5 minutes to the dean, perhaps to say a few words. I want to thank the provost for being here, and we appreciate you coming. It's always very informative, and again, taking your time.
Listen, I appreciate you letting me be here, and I do want to say that always feel free to reach out to myself or to Claire Mahuro, who is our acting vice provost. I promise you, we are working on things, and I am most appreciative of your reminder that we should also be seeking feedback from you on the changes that we're working on, and I will make sure that we do that as well. So thank you for letting me.
I want to extend a special thank you to the provost for making this her inaugural return to campus after last week. That means a lot, and we appreciate that you came today and spent so much time with us. Thank you. So we only have 5 minutes. We've had a lot of questions and answered. If I ask for questions and answer, that means we'll probably get one. So, and won't have time for more. So I just want to make a few general remarks, and then I want to share something with you that maybe Cynthia has heard. Some of you have heard before. First of all, I was very happy to hear the provost talk about our many events this semester. Someone told me last week that we may have more events than people remember from the past. I wouldn't know that because coming in during COVID, there weren't many events, right? So to me, everything is more than the past. But what the provost said is absolutely true. These are thought-provoking events. They're well-attended and students come. I'm really glad to see students. I go to almost all of the sabbatical talks. I can't make every single one. And I'm impressed how many students go. I can say as an undergraduate, we weren't even invited to go. So I think the fact that they're open is a great thing. I also wanted to say that I visit, as many of the departmental honors ceremonies this time of year. It's a really great thing for me to see because I don't work with students. You know that. I've never taught our students, but it's really nice to see how you work with students, how you help them to be successful, and then to have those families come and be, showing a great deal of joy, gratitude, and even pride. So it's a really nice thing, and thank you for letting me join your moments. So what I wanted to do is conclude. By the way, if you have questions, just send them to me or to the CLA Dropbox, and I'll be happy to get back to you. What I wanted to do is I wanted to share something with you that you may or may not have heard, especially if I was asked to talk at your award ceremony. This is a variation of something that I usually say at the welcome or the conclusion. And actually, parts of it come from an essay that I wrote and will be published in an honorary volume for a dean I work with closely at University of Tilburg in the Netherlands. And the prompt was, in 3,000 words, what is your academic utopia? Something that I haven't written about before. I don't at all think about utopia in my research, but it was a really great challenge. So some of it comes from there because I'm going to quote a bit. But I always start by, the way I want to start today, I say to the parents and the students that their success is a result of many people, the students' hard work of faculty, staff, friends, and parents. And then I ask everyone to, the parents to stand up and have everyone applaud them. Since we're all part of that, I would just like to take a moment and ask you to applaud yourself for the great work you've done this year. Is that going to be a week of applause? You're the ones we would thank in part during the ceremony. And then I'll read what I say. So I start by saying we live in a time of division in this country and around the world. This is also a time when the liberal arts and its subjects are often pushed to the side as impractical, having limited connection to commonly held notions of a successful life. 10 years ago, the American Academy of Arts and Sciences invited a diverse group of leaders from the corporate and academic world, the arts, journalism, and the not-for-profit sector to depict a more complete picture of the humanities, the liberal arts, and their contributions to the good life. They published their findings in a report entitled The Heart of the Matter, the Humanities and Social Sciences for a Vibrant, Competitive, and Secure Nation. And they concluded, and here I quote from the report, the humanities and social sciences, the core of the liberal arts, are at the heart of the matter, the keeper of the republic, a source of national memory and civic vigor, cultural understanding and communication. individual fulfillment, and the ideals we hold in common. Study continued, again, quote, humanities remind us where we have been and help us envision where we are going, emphasizing critical perspective and imaginative response. The humanities and liberal arts, including study of languages, literature, history, film, civics, philosophy, religion, and the arts, foster creativity, appreciation of our commonalities, of our differences, and knowledge of all kinds. Social sciences reveal patterns in our lives over time and the present moment. Employing the observational experimental methods of natural sciences, social sciences, including anthropology, economics, political science, and government, society, and psychology, examine and predict behavioral and organizational processes. Together, they help us understand what it means to be human and practice for a global community. Unquote. So this study argued that all levels of education should include the liberal arts and a focus on democratic principles, and that, again, quote, that would foster a society that is innovative, competitive, and strong for an interconnected world. Quote. The leaders behind this study highlighted was the role that the liberal arts, including all of our disciplines in the college, emphasize the role of the liberal arts, right? And that the liberal arts offer the skills, habits of mind, and intellectual orientation that support creative and critical thinking, as well as inclusive and interdisciplinary curiosity that lead to high levels of confidence in the evolving nature of knowledge and self. This is a heavy obligation for all of us to bear in the liberal arts, a burden we chose and have a responsibility to remain loyal. So thank you for everything you've done this year to make it another successful year, and enjoy the summer. Thanks for coming this morning. Thank you again to the provost.